Step 1, hi, how you doing? Step 2, what would you like to drink?
Welcome to this episode of The Ingredients. We're sitting here in Maybe Mae with Nick Corletto, the operating partner. Now today we talk about sustainability, we talk about the Adelaide bar scene, and how to make a profitable drink. We hope you really enjoy this episode. This episode of The Ingredients is brought to you by Tanda, the team helping the best venues stay ahead. Now, if you're running a great venue and you want to be compliant at the same time, reach out to Tanda at hospitality@tanda.com.au. The links are in the show notes of this podcast. Hope you enjoy the episode. Hey Nick, welcome to the Ingredients podcast.
Thanks, Shaun.
Thanks for having us here in this amazing venue, obviously in the basement just off Peel Street in Maybe Mae.
Yes, welcome.
How did you start out in the industry and come to be a partner in this incredible venue?
It's probably a longer story than we have time for, but
Sure.
the starting point is my family have a vineyard in Clare Valley and previously one in Wollonga as well. So I grew up on a vineyard essentially. A lot of my weekly chores at home when growing up was a little bit less do the dishes and a little bit more like, hey, go trellis all the vines and do some hard labor on whatever days you have off of school, basically. But so I've been, I guess, like booze adjacent since a young age. And as soon as I turned 18, I was like, cool, I'm tired of indentured servitude to the family farm and a bit more like, all right, cool, let's start earning some money kind of thing as well. And so dropped a resume at an old British pub that doesn't exist anymore. Sorry, an Irish pub that doesn't exist anymore. And that was the start of it as a glassy. And then as I kind of went through hospitality and pubs and nightclubs and big event crews and stuff like that, kind of like landed here a little over 10 years ago. And that was really when I cut my teeth in terms of like cocktail bars and like higher end or like more conceptual cocktail creation, and really found a home here because what we were trying to do since day dot really spoke to where I found a lot of relation to like in my internal compass, I guess.
What made you come and work here? Like, did you answer a job ad? Did you drop in?
Dropped in. It was through mutual friends, and Ollie approached me while I was working at a bar around the corner in the CBD as well. And I came in, tried some of the drinks, learned from some of the people, like met some people, and it was a very strong motivator to hone my craft and to really like learn from people that I viewed as mentors, and you know that paid off in a big way kind of thing. It was a space for learning and a space for pushing the boundaries, which 10 years ago didn't exist, but nowadays certainly does.
Yeah. Was it a gut feel when you came in here and tried those drinks? You're like, this is where I need to be. Like, I feel like these people really know their shit.
Yes and no. It was definitely a nudge in the right direction in terms of like, it felt a lot more like right place, right time. And a lot of it was like, hey, this is a good concept. I like what they're doing. Why not throw the hat in the ring kind of thing and like hope to work here kind of thing. So yeah.
Cool. And then what's made you stay for such a long time? Like 10 years in one bar, even though you're part of it financially, right?
Yes.
Like is a good chunk of change. Like,
yeah, I think the eternal question is like, if not here, where? And South Australian and Adelaide hospitality has come a really long way in the last decade. But previously it was like, it felt like Maybe Mae was the top of the food chain, respectfully and humbly. But it was also like, all right, after I became a lot more involved, especially in the management and the creative direction side of things as well, it's like, well, why go somewhere else to creatively direct in another space when you've got your head around operationally how a space works? So, and you've got full permission full autonomy, to just go ahead creatively and do what you want to do kind of thing as well. So it's been, I guess, very fortunate to land in a spot where that developed and evolved organically and maybe a little bit like by intention, but the freedom to do whatever you want kind of defeats the necessity to move elsewhere.
Yeah, of course. You said like, obviously the industry's changed here a lot. in the last 10 years since you've been around with Maybe Mae? Like, can you think of like the biggest change that you've seen in the bar scene here in Adelaide?
Everyone is making significantly better drinks, and it's really it's come such a long way for like, you know, when 10 years ago, when most of the time drinks looked a little bit more like, okay, only Negronis, old fashions, and espresso martinis were hitting, like going across the bar, to people, consumers, I should say, are a lot more educated, interested, and financially interested in trying new things and enjoying new experiences in South Australia. And I think the bars and the pubs and the nightclubs and restaurants across South Australia have really like rose to the occasion, and the quality of drinking here in South Australia has improved by magnitudes, essentially. So it's just great to be in amongst all of it as well, and like, we have our space in that fabric of South Australian hospitality, but it's great to see. It's great to go out and enjoy better drinking anywhere else. If I just sat in my own bar and drank my own good drinks that I like to drink, and what the team comes up with, it's like cool, but it's a little bit, for lack of a better term, masturbatory. It's like good to actually drink outside of the four walls, kind of thing, and drink well outside of the four walls.
What do you enjoy to drink then?
Kind of depends on the day, to be honest.
Sure.
More often than not, it's something like cold and fizzy, whichever format that takes. Sometimes champagne, sometimes Guinness, sometimes like a carbonated cocktail kind of serve. But to be honest, like anything goes. I think I drink more in context than I drink towards favorites. So like, if it's a hot day, I'll crush a lager or something like that. But if it's if I'm out for dinner or something and I get an aperitivo ahead of the curve, that's more. I think I just drink to the context more than anything else.
Cool.
Yeah.
And any favorite bars that you'd like to drink to in Adelaide as well?
Hard
you can talk about?
Hard to pin down favorites. I think like just the quintessential classic bar, or the safe zone that isn't here, is probably like Proof.
Yeah, sure.
Just off Weymouth Street on Anster Street. Just an incredibly well curated selection of one of everything, or like couple of everything. And it's just a really comfortable bar. Joe and Shane are immaculate in terms of like their taste and what they put forward in terms of their offering. And then outside of that, Bar Peripheral is one of my, I guess, like my recommendations. Any juniors or any rookies that we have here, or that are looking for guidance and are looking for, like, I guess, experientially a different form of service for cocktails or for bars, I send them there, and it's like a 14-seater, like Japanese omakase style, like cocktail bar. Like basically, you're being transported directly to like Ginza in Tokyo kind of thing. Vinny is very good at his craft, and it's equal parts theatrics and like that careful movement that makes all the difference. And terrific classics and terrific like bespoke drinks to go along with it.
When you have a bar as special as this, that obviously curates a beverage menu which is so iconic and so lovely and thoughtful and curated so well, when a customer comes in for the first time, and I imagine most customers would probably drink 2, 3, or 4 drinks while they're here, right? Depending on how long they're here for and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it depends.
Let's say they're here for 3 drinks.
Sure.
Do they come for like 2 that are on the menu that are really curated and thoughtful, and then get a Scotch and Coke? Or will they get 3 that are on the menu and like go through that procedure? Like, is there any normality of people getting a G&T or a Scotch and Coke?
The gist is no. There's no normality in terms of like what. If someone walked through the door, that could equal parts be someone who wants to dissect the menu and go over even though we give all of our drinks a bit of a bird's eye view description of what's in it and all that kind of thing, so that we don't bore people with the nerdy specifics of what we do within that cocktail, or they come in and they can just be like, just I'll have a beer. What beers do you have on tap kind of thing. It's really hard to pick that demographic, and to be honest, we get all kinds here. And the that I've learned is to make sure that all of them feel welcome and the drinks are accessible to everyone. And you just let them land wherever they'd like to, kind of thing, and make sure that if anyone walks in, they have something liquid to imbibe in, and happy days, kind of thing. I think a lot of the time we do get people that are just there. I would say that not conscious or ambivalent is like of what we do or what we offer. That's not our main thing. Our main thing is to make sure that they came here for a good drink. We put a good drink in their hands. And so the dialogue and how we give our table service and that part of the hospitality is what bridges the gap between when someone walks in, getting to know them, putting the right drink in their hands as well.
Can we delve deeper into that? Because I think it's really important, and how you do that and how you curate a really great service angle, because you're both destinational, but you're also hitting the event zone of Adelaide, right? Being so close to Adelaide Oval, getting football games, cricket games, concerts. So therefore your demographic is so wide in who comes through this place, right? And so many people recommending. So how do you, from a service angle and a steps of service, make sure that every guest is looked after the way you want them to be?
So step one, hi, how you doing? Step two, what would you like to drink? I think it's all about dialogue and just treating the person across from you like a human being and going like, hey, what are you searching for? Can we fill that gap? If someone comes in, we say, hey, how are you? Yeah, really good. What have you been up to? Just had dinner. You're getting some service notes. You're getting some dialogue about what their journey is before getting here. And then there's a little bit of dialogue after of like, what can we do for you? What are you searching for? Like, some people have no idea that we're even here. Even locals are still walking in for the first time, 11 years later going like, oh, I never realized this place was here. Also completely fine. So it's more about just kind of catching them up with what we do best, but then also saying, hey, if nothing that is printed on the menu is working for you, disregard and just make a request. And if we had the liquid to put in the cup, we'll do it for you.
Cool.
Yeah.
How hard is it to curate a beverage list like you've got? Like, how often do you change it up? Is it a seasonality thing? Is it a week by week thing?
It's more of a week by week thing. Sticking to produce and creativity and inspiration and what kind of drink specials you have going, or maybe you've just, want to work with a brand in particular, especially local ones. They don't work on a month by month or a week by week or a 6-month program. Life doesn't work that way. The best thing that we can do is make it ad hoc. And we moved 2 years ago to a full digital menu to support that ad hoc change up as well, rather than reprinting 200 plus menus for a weekend just because one thing sold out. Doesn't make heaps of sense. So we moved to digital in order to make sure that whenever something rotates out seasonally, we respond to that directly. If we have an ingredient that we know is about to fall out of season, then we go, all right, what's lined up behind it? How does it work in context of the full menu? And then what do we do to replace it? And then we replace it as soon as it's gone. We can sometimes do that even on the shift, within the moment, within the hour, within the quarter of an hour kind of thing as well. So having that digital menu is not to remove us interacting with our customers. Like, we're only 75 seats, so there's no room to remove human interaction. The goal is to make sure that we're clearly broadcasting what we're creating and displaying on the menu is quite literally the thing that we put our time and effort behind and a lot of thought behind, which is the produce.
I want to talk about the produce in a minute. Because you've now told me you're digital only, I need to delve into that.
Sure.
What was the feedback when you went digital only? Because of all hospitality venues, I think, maybe it's just me, the aesthetic of a menu and a leather-bound menu or something like that, I think most people would think about with bars and be part of that experience for them. How did you communicate that to guests, and how was that perceived?
I guess the ultimate balm to that kind of prickly interaction of it's digital only, it's a QR code people do not like QR codes since the before times.
Yes.
And so I think the main thing is like there's still dialogue there. It's all about humans. It's all about how you talk to that other person sitting across the table or across the bar from you, and you go, hey, look, if you don't want to whip out your phone and read the menu, just dialogue, talk to me, like what would you like, kind of thing. And then through that dialogue you create the short list of like, all right, well obviously we're going to try and push them towards the things that we are most proud of, which is what we offer on the menu, the things that are the most seasonal. But sometimes the dialogue is like people will flick through even a paper menu, flick through 15 pages, 14 pages of a cocktail list and then go, where the fuck's the Negroni? And it's like, you don't need to put a Negroni on a menu, because logically
it's a Negroni.
I would hope that every bar in Australia has those 3 ingredients at least, because if not, then you're missing out on customers who really want to drink that drink.
Yes.
I think the main thing is that, like, you know, through dialogue, it does help solve that more prickly problem of not having the paper menu. But paper menus also generate their own slew of problems, and it's not to say that we didn't try, but it's more the fact that the paper menus that we were very proud of and that we displayed and made were either incredibly expensive or not up to the quality that we wanted. So it's one or the other. And typically, the romanticism of having a physical menu is really great up until you get told, oh, that's sold out, that's sold out, that's sold out. And there's like a drink, like someone put a drink within the open page and the menus are folded backward, or like people tear them up because they're anxious on a date or something like that. The reality of a paper menu is a lot less romantic than thinking about a paper menu as well. And obviously people are still technologically inclined or like but the ultimate solving of all of that is like, hey, please disregard. And the dialogue from service is like, if you don't want to use your phone, don't use your phone. We are right here to serve you. We're right here to talk to you. So if anything, it almost makes it a little bit easier. And especially like later on Friday, Saturday nights, you know, lights are low, music's up high. People can't read a paper menu anyway.
Yeah, that's
like,
a really good
so
point.
like, you know, there's I
really
think the argument for a paper menu is valid, but I think people don't consider the opposition to a paper menu far nearly as much as they consider the opposition to a digital menu. And both arguments are valid, but I think this is just the where we plant our flag in the sand essentially and go, hey, this is what we do, and if you don't like it, that's perfectly okay.
Yes.
What can I get you to drink? Like, yeah, the dialogue is cut real short after that. Kind of thing. It's like, beer, great, done,
easy.
Yeah.
When you think around seasonality, especially, I know you guys support obviously South Australian vendors the most. There's been such a amazing explosion in distillers and craft breweries around Australia, but I mean, there's a lot in South Australia. How do you change up those different suppliers throughout the year that you want to support? You know, like, are you trying to keep it pretty wide in who you support? Are you trying to keep it pretty narrow and refined in who you support? Like, how do you think about that?
I think we try to give airtime as fairly as possible to a lot of the local distillers and brewers and that kind of thing. I think realistically, if you try to spread yourself too thin, no one gets their quid pro quo. And I think that's a feel bad for everyone. It's a lose-lose-lose.
Yep.
Lose for customers that don't get the adequate expectation of like, hey, it's this gin, here's what it tastes like, here's who makes it. That dialogue, if you've got 500 of them in a specialty gin bar, is perfectly valid. In a bar that focuses not on gin, you're going to have some service gaps, and you know, it's about managing expectations and then coming up to those management of expectations. If consistently we can't give a full digest of what the product that we're selling, maybe it's not worth selling that product, and maybe just curating your selection and making sure that the customer gets a really good dialogue of what product they're experiencing and gets the full quid pro quo. The distiller gets their product shown in a much more friendly light, and it's time and effort that they've put into such a like carefully curating that product, and we deliver adequate dialogue to support that care and effort. And then from our point of view, it's also like, you know, if we can't talk about one of the products that we're selling, well, what's the difference between us and maybe, you know, even just buying it online as a random shop? You know, even Dan Murphy's, people will have some dialogue about the product that they're selling.
Sure.
You know, even at the far end to the retail end, there's still product knowledge ingrained in there. And so I guess my point is like, if you have one of everything from everyone, you're not going to give those products their due diligence. And I think having a more curated selection and rotating that reasonably often to make sure that that's kept up is important. We tend to just have less is more, and we tend to champion, obviously, like, you know, the more of a personal dialogue we have with the makers, the more likely we are to have an emotional attachment, and therefore a more respectful like appreciation of the product and the craft that they put into it. And so there is that as well. But we do try to change it up wherever necessary, or if things get a little bit stale or a bit boring, then the little voice in the back of the head goes, hey, maybe let's switch that out and, you know, support another local guy.
How often do you get pitched new booze?
Every day.
Every day.
Every day, every week. Like there's always something new. And it's really we're very grateful to have all of that. It's like having a Rolodex of flavors and influences and like brands to access at any point in time.
Sure.
But the realistic thing is we're, you know, a 75-seater cocktail bar that we're not doing serious volume. So more often than not, it's really nice to observe and be put in front of that. But we can also offer, I guess most of the time when I've got a product put in front of me, and if they say, hey, can you give us some feedback? The feedback is honest and genuine. And, you know, if there's someone or a place that I think could really use their product, usually I'll nudge them in that direction and try and send an email and get a e-meet through and help them kind of interface with the people that I think that product will do really well with.
Obviously, we talked before about seasonality. When fruits aren't available all year round and you're going down that seasonality line, how do you interchange ingredients in maybe more normalized drinks to make sure that you're hitting that seasonality
like
part of your business? Correct.
Yeah. Okay. I think we try to not if someone asks for a classic, we try not to change it too much from the expectation. Obviously, something like lemons and limes, you know, if it's anti-seasonal, then so be it. You try to get it from somewhere within, maybe not within South Australia, but at least Australia.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the goal. But the reality is that, you know, we're still that, like, as much as we like to fly the flag of what we try to do is like seasonal produce and that kind of thing to the front, there's still room for other produce as well. We just try to minimize it. We just try to move it less. But you still should. We're still in the art of hospitality. Like, we're still trying to make sure that the person who comes there gets the thing that they want. And so, you know, it would be remiss if we didn't order lemons or limes to accomplish that. But if we're looking at like our drinks program of like our house cocktail list, when it's not in season, it's not on our house cocktail list. That's the area where we can really draw the line in the sand for that.
Sure. Obviously, this bar being here over 10 years, it's been financially sustainable for that period of time. How do you make a bar financially sustainable these days? Given that if you look at the Eastern Seaboards, like, it's not unheard of to see a $28, $30 cocktail.
Yes. And
with the cost of living crisis that we have, that we keep being told that we have, that obviously we do, people's discretionary spend is down. So if they would have come out and had 3 drinks and maybe have 2, that really changes your profit margin. How do you make that work in South Australia in a small bar? Because you said, you know, you are a 75-seater. You can't rely on a 200-seater in order to try and get revenue. How do you make those numbers work?
I guess as all things in business, margins, like, that's just a real close eye on that. Making sure that, I think you were talking about discretionary spending, and I think that's a really important factor in a post-COVID environment and where we are at the moment. Realistically, we were trying to for example, so anecdotally, we were trying to do $22 cocktails across the board. Like that was our house price list, which is like, you know, $1 or $2 cheaper than all of our neighbors along Peel Street and Lee Street. And people were still coming in saying that the drinks were too expensive, which is fine and valid, but it's feedback that you listen to and then you evaluate why we were doing $22 cocktails. The point of doing a $22 cocktail or a less, like $1 or $2 less than the market price for a cocktail in a capital city is you want them to have more than one. You want them to observe that and go $22 drinks, oh, instead of a $24 drink or a $26 drink, let's have one more. And then you get, instead of a $22 head spend or, you know, maybe let's say a drink and a half kind of thing. So, you know, $34 head spend. Well, what does it look like if it was a $44 head spend? So the idea is very much like, all right, if we can't get an extra drink out of them and drive that head spend and keep the margins in check, if we can't get that additional drink out of them, then we need to maybe drive that head spend elsewhere. And so we were looking at, like, rather than someone having 1.5 cocktails per visit on average, now it's like, all right, well, that's the case. We're not hitting that second drink per visit per head. Let's drive that head spend slightly upwards, and that's where you would change your margin slightly to accommodate for that, or you'd change your cost price of your cocktail to accommodate for that slightly lesser head spend and drive that revenue a little bit more. It's just 10%, but it makes a difference.
Sure. Yeah. Do you think the fact that the number started with a 2 was a problem? Like, for example, if you went, we're doing $18 cocktails.
Yes.
Do you think you'd still get complaints?
Every time we've probably been very apprehensive to adjust our prices upwards in the whole history of Maybe Mae, like in 10 years. You know, when our neighbors were $20 cocktails, we were still $18 or $16 cocktails.
Wow.
And people were still saying, hey, the drinks are too expensive. So I think anecdotally speaking, I can't describe what the experience is for other bars or other businesses, but doesn't matter what you price it as, someone's going to
complain.
Someone's going to say, hey, it's too expensive.
Sure.
But the trick is that all of your revenue at the end of a week is evidence against that one person saying, hey, your drinks are too expensive. You've made, you know, X much $1,000 per week. That's evidence against that one person. That one $18 person is evidence against the rest of that revenue kind of thing, of people who politely disagree and just buy the drink anyway kind of thing. So I think it often feels a bit more like, you know, the vocal minority in terms of like price, but I think you should always be sensitive to basically just only increase the price at the very last minute. Do it until you've got no other options left.
Sure.
If you can't tweak the dials in terms of ingredients or specs, or, you know, making the drink as good as you possibly can, charging it for this price, there's a lot of things that you can do behind that to dial in the knobs and just make sure that you're getting the most effective margin out of it. The trick is to kind of fire off on increasing your prices last, I feel, because once you do that, you can't go backwards.
Sure.
It's really difficult to go backwards, because if people come in, they see it's a $24 cocktail or a $28 cocktail, they're probably not going to come back.
Sure, they'll pay it, but they won't come back after that.
Yeah, they'll buy the one,
yes.
And then if they're price sensitive, then you don't have a chance to claim that customer back, because in their head they go, why would I go to this end of Adelaide CBD if I know that it's $28, and even though you've gone back to $22, you'll never get that person back to observe that change.
Because they're still thinking 28.
Correct. Yeah. So I think the last thing you should do is increase your price per cocktail or price per drink. Dial in the margins, work on your drink specs, figure out if you're getting the best price per mil of, you know, vodka, gin, whiskey, etc. You know, consider the ingredients. Are your ingredients locally sourced? In which case, probably in season and cheaper. Use that. Are you importing ingredients? Are you using something that's a little bit more expensive and expecting it to be like, all right, cool, well, it's an expensive drink to make and therefore we charge $28. It's like, well, have you considered making it with the same ingredients but from a different source, and maybe not putting 2 shots of 23-year-old whiskey in it and then justifying the price at the end. It's like, maybe you should just use a cheaper whiskey.
Yes.
Sometimes that's the simpler way about it.
Is it hard to go, we should just use a cheaper whiskey, we should just use a cheaper vodka?
It's the easiest thing to do because there's really good I think in the spirits market, unfortunately, it's a bit of a race to the bottom while taxation is a race upwards.
Absolutely.
So that's a really difficult situation to be in. But brands that you support and want to support you is the first step towards that dialogue of like, hey, be transparent with your margins as well. Like say, hey, I want to use your product, your gin, your vodka, your whiskey in our cocktail. I want it to hit $24 for a drink. Here's what my margins look like. Can you help us achieve this? Be transparent with how your margins work when you're talking with brands to achieve those margins. Really, and I think that's a good way of being like ethical and transparent when you work with brands. And also it gives them some dialogue of like, well, you know, if we want to work with this cocktail bar or we want to work with this pub or nightclub, we need to hit that target. And so when that kind of margin comes into play for a brand point of view, they can then approach you because you've been earnest in your dialogue of how that margin works.
Is it hard to refine a beverage program knowing you need to hit a certain margin on a $22 cocktail without stripping it back so much that it becomes boring? Because you have an experientially driven bar, and part of that is in what you have inside a cup, as well as the experience of the leather seating and the atmosphere and the lighting and the sound and that kind of stuff. Is it hard to pare it back but not too much?
I guess I'm pretty far removed from how the bar is built and designed. That was before, like a year before my time. But the reality is that through the drinks, you can adjust how you create drinks. And obviously in 10 years, I hope that we've got a bit of not quite a formula, but a good way to go about that design process and making sure that we hit those targets. I think oftentimes, you know, throughout like every 3 to 6 to 12 months, there'll be brands that we're excited to work with. They'll put a product in front of us by that constant, I guess, being shown new things and that kind of thing coming across the table. It inspires us, and then it's in the top level of the brain whenever we look at produce, and so that's when that kind of design process kind of kicks off. And then from there we go, all right, well, let's try and make this drink with these seasonal ingredients. I think this works with this product that got shown to us recently. Let's try and make it to make sense with that. This is the best tasting drink. Does this hit the margin first of all? Yes or no? If it doesn't, what needs changing? Do we adjust how we work with the produce? Do we talk to the producer and go, hey, this looks like this. We can probably do, this many tons over 3 months. Does this pricing work for you on a margin sense when it comes to produce? Or this is when you talk to the brand and go, you be transparent, you go, hey, here's the margin. We think your product is the best when we designed this drink. We think this showcases your brand and your product the best with this seasonal produce. Here's our margin. Can you help us achieve it, kind of thing? But that's only after the fact. This kind of dialogue only happens if we can't make that number make sense.
Sure.
And if it's a respectful no, then that's okay. We'll find another one that is adjacent or similar, and typically we'll pare down the spirit to make sense with the margin.
I know this is not an easy question to answer. How long does it usually take you to work out a new drink?
Sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes months.
Right, wow.
I think a lot of the time, obviously there's some dialogue involved with like making the margin make sense, as we just talked about. But I think a lot of the time it's about invention through necessity. We'll have a drink that is falling out of season within a month or 2 months or 3 months, and we'll go, all right, do we have a plan? What's lined up behind it? Does it make sense in the context of the full menu? When we have all of these other drinks lined up behind the slot that it's in, does this make sense as a cohesive menu after the fact? Like if we do the full page turn and the full change of all of those drinks, does that menu format make sense as well? So you're always kind of like filling in the spreadsheet of the next sell over is the next drink that comes over. Does that column all kind of make sense as well? Does that whole menu shift all make sense?
Sure.
So sometimes that comes around very quickly and easily, and sometimes you're right down to the teeth, and you're like, okay, well, it's produce as well. Sometimes that stuff runs out a lot quicker than you think it does, or even the producer does. And so they go, hey, no more of this. And you go, cool, we need a new watermelon drink tomorrow. And it's like, cool, let's just get it together. And so
Wow.
having the Rolodex of brands in mind in top level, knowing the produce that is in season, knowing the ingredients that will work well with the new produce makes sense as well. So, sometimes it comes together very quickly, and sometimes they're our best drinks because we don't overanalyze it, we don't overthink it. We're not trying to do, the most fancy fermented rotovac stuff as well. Like sometimes people just want fresh produce in a glass with the right spirit, and that makes all the difference in the world.
Sure. Sustainability is a big buzzword that's being used, especially I find probably in the last 12 months it's really trended quite heavily. What does sustainability mean for you in a bar?
Might be a bit of a hot take, but no bar on planet Earth is sustainable. It is intrinsically a consumable waste generating industry. Electricity, water, human power, produce, whichever way you slice it, spirits, that comes from somewhere, creates a carbon footprint. I think if we analyze how sustainable is displayed in other industries and we put that comparatively to hospitality falls very short to that comparison, purely by nature of what we do. Like, it's a consumption-based industry, experience and consumption-based industry, and so therefore there's an intrinsic wastefulness as a result of it. I think ethically talking about hospitality as sustainable is probably doesn't rest easy with me, and I think for the last fair few years we say that there's elements of what we do that is sustainable, but I think we are not a sustainable bar.
Sure.
If you compare us to other industries, for example. So I think that's the main hot take that I have, which is like, if you work in hospitality, sadly it is not sustainable. But that being said, we can be a lot more conscious of our consumption, and we can reduce our impact significantly. And I think a lot of it starts with looking at what has the biggest impact. Using the rind off of a watermelon that you make for one of your cocktails on your list is a good way of going, hey, the farmer grew and produced the full kilo of that watermelon.
Sure.
Use every gram of that watermelon that was grown over the course of 6 months to a year. But I think also going all right, are we getting our spirits locally, or are they imported? What's the carbon footprint of moving that liquid across the world? Are we using liqueurs that are from Australia, or are we using liqueurs that are from halfway around the world? Are we using wine from halfway around the world? So these factors are probably the biggest macro impact on, I guess, the ecosystems that we live in. And I think from a produce-centric point of view, whatever we do with our produce to be sustainable is nothing compared to where we source our spirits, where we source our products, and that has a way bigger impact. I think if someone's opening a sustainable bar, the first thing you should do is how far does the truck travel to deliver the ingredients or what you put in a cup to your venue? That's the biggest impact, bar none.
How do you feel about the Adelaide bar scene at the moment? Obviously, with the changes in the small bar laws that we had spoken pre-podcast about, that really exploded small bar licenses in Adelaide. What's your feeling on where we're at as a city and as a state with bars?
I think there was a big explosion of more places, more venues that had a personality. The reality is that by decreasing the overheads of requirements and just what needed to happen to get a venue off the ground, thanks to the small bar license, you see a lot more personality, a lot more curated offerings, a lot more unique takes on eating and drinking within our country, within our state, and I think it's a really good addition to the ecosystem, to the fabric of hospitality in South Australia. It's only a good thing. I think obviously there are going to be places and people that find out that smaller venues have their own unique set of challenges, and I think that consumers are aware of that as well. I think more so than we give them credit for. And I think that if you're opening a small bar, like it can be a license to print money sometimes, but realistically, how much revenue can you take out of a 120 seat capacity as well? So it's not the magic formula, but I think it is really good for culture and hospitality as a whole. It allows and makes accessible a lot more ways of approaching hospitality, and it doesn't mean that it has to be big and it has to be a machine and it has to make sense. On a macro scale, it leaves room for 14-seater omakase style Japanese cocktail bars. It leaves room for 75-seat produce-driven table service with digital QR menu cocktail bars as well.
Yes.
Like you can dissect that as many ways as you like, and that's the best part of allowing for that small bar license. I think typically they are also a lot less incident by concentration of incidents, and the things that liquor licensing legally is typically concerned about. Per capita, they tend to reduce the risk overall to the public year on year, and I think that's a really effective statistic to support small bar licenses being a lot more prolific and a lot more accepted and a lot more approved, because if you're generally safer in a small bar or a small licensed venue versus any other format, typically that's a good statistic to have for the general punter.
I agree. What's the smallest operational change you've made in the venue that's given you the biggest impact?
I think working through and refining what it is to have a seasonal cocktail menu is probably the biggest change in how you design drinks. But with the minimum amount of checking and double checking and triple checking everything as well. Creating a cocktail list is very straightforward. I think in a bar that doesn't have a direction, if you're creating a cocktail menu for everyone without a certain paradigm or dynamic behind it, then I think it's quite straightforward. But I think a lot of people don't realize how easy it is to walk through a grocer or walk through, we've got the central markets, 2 blocks from here as well, where you literally just have seasonal produce accessible at all times. And just casting your eyes on that is enough to make you go, oh, wait, hang on, that's actually easy to make a drink out of, or it generates a lot more creative flow. And so just by going, hey, instead of using these fruit liqueurs or that kind of thing, or a store-bought juice or something like that, it's like, well, we bought a juicer, we have juice, we use it for lemons and limes. You have a Mexican elbow, you can probably juice a lot of things, albeit with a bit more elbow grease if you need to as well.
Yes.
And making ingredients from produce, it's typically water, sugar, fruit. That's the recipe for almost every piece of bespoke ingredient on planet Earth to start off with, maybe 95% of them, and then everything else is a little bit more finicky and complex, but you get there in the end as well. So I think the smallest thing you can do to make a bigger impact is just open your doors to more than just what's on the Coles or ALM order sheet kind of thing as well, rather than just looking at a product list of things to look at to put in drinks. Sometimes one of those extra things could be just walking outside and looking at what's around you, and there's a galaxy of flavor in your neighborhood. It's just up to you to access it.
I reckon you've got to be here a lot longer than this, but If you left Maybe Mae in 5 years,
Sure.
what would you want your legacy be, and what would you want Maybe Mae to be known for?
I think about my tenure here every now and then, existentially, dreadfully, optimistically. But I think the main thing is like the people that I work with are my friends, and I think that when they've gone on to greener pastures, it's often with good wishes, and I really hope that they're doing well. And I hope that what I like about hospitality when I first started was learning and having mentors, people that I could depend upon and rely upon to ask questions. And if I'm hungry for knowledge, I had access to ways of learning. And I hope that what I leave behind is a cast of faces and people and professionals that are open to asking questions and reaching out to people for support and for inspiration. And I hope that what I leave behind is a crew of people who are better than when they first walked in, and hopefully friends. Like the drinks come and go, and with the seasons, and you look wistfully back on some of them as well. But I think oftentimes I think about the faces that have come through, and I think that's the main thing that I like and that I love about this place, and hopefully my impact on it as well.
My final question to you is, what are you excited about for the next stage of Maybe Mae? Like, we're about to roll into 2026. What are you guys thinking about for the next year?
I think obviously drinks. Like we like thinking about drinks. I think the landscape of people are finally maybe loosening up a little bit on their discretionary spending, at least anecdotally. And I think we're learning to adjust accordingly to people, being still a bit anxious of their budget and being a bit more conscious of that. That goes hand in hand with like lower ABV serves and non-ABV serves. I think having our talent kind of like working and building. We've had a little bit of a changing of the guard, not the full team changing, but some new faces, some new juniors, some new people who are in Maybe Mae who are experienced already. And I think having them as part of the fabric and seeing their influence and their impact and how the drinks look and what our direction goes from organically and what they create in this space is exciting. And I think I'm more and more happy to have me be less of the person that makes the majority of the drinks as time goes on. I want to see their impact a lot more, and they're responding and reciprocating as well, which is really nice to see.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nick, thanks so much for hosting us in this amazing venue in Peel Street in Adelaide.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thanks for your time.
Cheers. I appreciate it, Shaun. Cheers.
This episode of The Ingredients is brought to you by Tanda, the team helping the best venues stay ahead. Now, if you're running a great venue and you want to be compliant at the same time, reach out to Tanda at hospitality@tanda.com.au. The links are in the show notes of this podcast.